Innovative.
Dynamic.
Gritty.
Determined.
Warrior.
This podcast is about the innovators,
the leaders on the front lines of adversity,
the all-around good people doing good deeds.
They are the civic warriors of the world.
Witham's guests are the leaders in the nonprofit industry affecting change.
They try, they fail, they overcome.
Through their stories, we can join forces to become civic warriors. Hey Warriors, thanks for tuning in. On today's episode of Civic Warriors, we spoke with Harrison Bernstein of Soldiers to Sidelines about his journey founding the nonprofit and making it a success. Soldiers to Sidelines is a 501c3 nonprofit that provides a renewed sense of purpose for veterans and service members to become character-based sports coaches who serve in their communities. Harrison brings significant experience in coaching and leadership and helps to provide veterans an avenue to apply their skills and experience in a professional career. Let's welcome Harrison to the show. Welcome to the Civic Warriors podcast, Harrison. We appreciate you volunteering both in your personal life as well as in this podcast to share your story as well as share some insight into how you're helping our veterans as well as helping many fulfill their goals and find their purpose. So thanks for being part of the show.
Oh, yeah. Of course. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So Harrison Bernstein is the executive director of a not-for-profit organization called Soldiers to Sidelines. And so Harrison, maybe if you can give us a little background about yourself, how you got involved and with the organization, as well as how you got it to where it is today.
Oh, thanks, Brad. Yeah, actually, I founded the organization. This was actually an idea that started in May of 2014. And full disclosure, I never served in the military. This idea kind of grew organically, and ultimately, I'm a coach. I was a football coach. I was a strength and conditioning coach. I still like to consider myself that as well. But
you look like a fit guy.
Well, thank you. But yeah, and most recently over these past few years, Soldiers to Sidelines has been my priority and my focus. And you'll start to see why. And ultimately, what happened as the inception of Soldiers to Sidelines was a moment where I was a sports performance coach for the Washington Redskins, as they used to be called at the time, and that was the organization I was coaching for. And I just had this out of body moment. I was just doing a workout actually with Santana Moss, and he doesn't even know that this was actually happening. And we had this great program for him, right? And he and I had to do like this one-on-one workout this day because he was watching film and studying in other ways to prep for the game on Sunday. So he came a little bit later, and I was just like putting him through a very specifically tailored thing for him. And he's doing it, and he's doing a great job. He's such an excellent preparer. But I'm having this out of body moment, like, what am I doing? Like, how am I charged with getting Santana Moss better at football? This makes no sense. He's already so good. And I started thinking, like, the things that I could do with him physiologically to make him any bit faster or more athletic come with so much risk that it wouldn't even be worth it, right? So I was like, what makes him great? Like, what's going on? I'm like, well, he believes in all of the work that we're putting into him. I think so. This belief is really what is giving him the strength and the ability to perform on Sunday. Because I was like, really, all we really need to do is get him in a situation where he can express his true, authentic self on Sunday. And then if Santana Moss is Santana Moss to his purest, we're going to win a lot of games because that guy is amazing, right? And so then I started thinking, like, well, that would mean that we'd have to get really good at practicing sports psychology, motivation, influence, a lot of the different sciences that center around the mind and behavior. And then also all the physiological stuff we're doing is super important too. Like, the reason he believes in me is because we put together a really sound program that specifically suits his needs. Then I was thinking, well, it's also important to understand the sport very well. Like you would have to know all the techniques and the strategy at a super deep level. So that's where that biomechanics kind of comes into this, but then you have to know the strategy. So at the time I was teaching at George Washington University at night in their master's program of exercise science. So like this out of body experience just like really inspired me to just start reading and researching deeply into all of these other sciences. And I started writing these curriculums, like what would make the ultimate coach? And I would read all these textbooks and come up with this stuff and created a curriculum. And then I would pitch it to GW and be like, hey, can we offer this course? And most of the time they'd say no, like we don't have enough room in the curriculum for that. But sometimes they'd be like, that's a great idea. You can make it a class in an already existing course. But over the years, I wound up just compiling all this awesome content that was just sitting dormant on my computer. Well, we got fired from the Redskins, as football coaches do. Our last year, we were very poor in our performance. And so I wound up just staying in Washington, D.C., and I wound up volunteering at a local high school just to coach defensive backs. And that was a lot of fun. And we were really good. So we wound up like getting to like 8 in the nation. We played a national schedule at this high school. It was really cool. And I had another colleague of mine, this is like 2013. He says, hey, we have all of these service members coming back to DC from the Middle East looking for something to do. Why don't we bring them out to the football practice and teach them how to coach football? I was like, Matt, that's a great idea. Let's do it. And he's like, sure. And he started working with this one guy, and we would have folks come over and get him involved in football. And it had so much success that Matt then was like, hey, I had more to this idea than just bringing folks to the practice field.
Sure.
We should start a nonprofit, call it Soldiers to Sidelines, and you should run it. I was like, wait, what? No, I'm not doing that. And he was like, no, seriously, you should do it. Think about it. Like, you'd be perfect for this. I was like, Matt, no, I'm trying to be a great football coach. Like, I'm going back into college coaching. We're going to work our way back through the NFL and do what we love to do, which is coach football. Running a nonprofit is not what I love to do. Like, I love coaching football. And he's like, I know, but you should just do this. So anyway, he persisted for like 6 months. And embarrassingly, it took me that long to realize, like, hey, you have like 7 years of coaching curriculum content sitting dormant on your computer. Oh, and by the way, the best people on the planet to teach how to coach are our servicemen and women, and they're here in our backyard. Maybe you should try it. So I said, you know what? We'll do one coaching seminar and we'll see how it goes. He was like, okay, just one. We'll just practice. I said, okay. But I said, Matt, it's got to be my way. Like, we have to use this curriculum in this way. Like, you okey doked me into this deal. Don't start changing stuff. He was like, no, you got it. We'll do it together. It'll be so much fun. So Walter Reed opens up their doors to us. We had contacts in Washington, D.C., and Walter Reed Hospital loved the idea. So we get there and they give us this building to do it. And we had like 6 service members show up from all different branches for our first, 2.5-day seminar. Mm-hmm. And my gosh, it was so impactful. And I loved it. And so did the participants. So I was like, we could do it better. Let's do it again. Right. So like 1 year later, we would do it again, and it got a little bit bigger. And then sure enough, I get into college coaching, and my buddy whose idea it was winds up having this very successful career in business and starts a family. And he's like, I can't do Soldiers of Sidelines anymore. It's all you. So he literally like leaves me with this idea, as while I'm still coaching football. And now I have this project called Soldiers to Sidelines that's having a pretty big impact. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I know this is a long story, but it eventually grows. And I feel like we have another good buddy who is an incredible lacrosse coach, super famous in the world of lacrosse. So we decided like duplicate our efforts and go from football to lacrosse and start diversifying sports. And then that worked really well. So sure enough, it just grew to a point where 3 years ago, I resigned from coaching college football. I had other opportunities in the NFL that I let just kind of run its course. So I didn't really pursue it because I knew that Soldiers of Sidelines was becoming my passion. And mainly because we had some of our participants who attended our live seminar events come up to me afterwards just talking about how we just saved their life. Like they were considering doing some harm and didn't feel like they had a purpose at that moment, and that they realized coaching was it, and that they were born to be a coach. And once that happened and we start really changing someone's life for the better in a very, very real, intense way, I was like, wow, I have an opportunity to serve a lot of people in this country. And that I went all in Soldiers to Sidelines. Really, we weren't making money. I wasn't making money. So I got rid of all my income and I was like, I'm just going to figure this out. And sure enough, here we are. Now we have, over 300 soldier coaches from 4 different, from all the branches of the military and 4 different sports. And we're growing fast. And it's probably it is the most rewarding thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah, it sounds like it, and just an incredible backstory. Just I'm always fascinated and awed at when you made a very, very significant career move too. I mean, on top of you had an entire background in a certain area, and then you said, I'm going to transition this into something for my best use, or I feel that I can make a big impact on the world. And I mean, that's a very not only a brave move, but I'm sure at the time a very uncertain one. When you're like, how am I gonna subsidize this, or how am I gonna make this work? Both personally as well as in that professional. What was that like for you? I guess just transitioning from being a professional coach. I had this entire career, and then tomorrow I'm going to run a nonprofit. What was that transition like for you?
Seamless. And I know you would think it comes with a lot of hardships, but it does, right? And so for me, the earning money and making it grow was certainly uncertain, uncertain. And that was a little bit scary, but I wasn't scared like at all. It just felt so natural. It's one of these things where like spiritually, I just felt it like deep in my solar plexus, like this is exactly the right thing to do. I was being pulled into this, and it's almost like God and the universe is showing me like, hey, num, this is what you're supposed to be doing. So it was really easy to do that. And for me, it's not like I stopped coaching. I'm still coaching. I'm just coaching coaches to be the best coaches possible. And I felt like if I wanted to have an impact as a football coach, I could affect everybody on my team, which is extremely rewarding. But if I can coach a number of coaches that can affect all of their teams in the right way, now you've just exponentiated your affect in this world. And right now our country needs great coaches. We need better character-based role models. We believe our military can be that, and at the same time really provide the sense of fulfillment and purpose that I always had as a coach for all of our transitioning service members and veterans.
That's awesome. What do you feel, I guess, from working with a lot of our a lot of our veterans in assimilating them into becoming coaches? What do you feel some of the cross disciplines that work out really well, that make it such a good synergy between being military going into coaching at a professional level? What do you feel some of those synergies are that you're able to kind of bring out of people or link that really helps?
Okay, there's a bunch, and so I can just speak to what I observe, not to what I know, because I've never served in the military, right? So like I've never been through that. But what I observe is there are so many different skills that you can develop within the service. The first and foremost thing, though, that is just more important than anything is selfless service.
Mhm.
So whether you see combat or not, it doesn't matter. You are giving up your time. You are sacrificing the things that you want to do for a greater purpose. And that's what sports is all about. And I think sometimes right now in sports, that's what's missing, with this name, image, and likeness stuff that's going on in the NCAA and kids about like, what kind of scholarships can I get and what can I get? The whole reason sports are exciting is because you're doing this for something bigger than yourself. And, service members just do that. Otherwise, you wouldn't have joined the military. So there's that. Then there's this innate institutionally taught sense of leadership, right? And there's a sequential way to grow and improve that I think really translates to coaching young athletes. Also, I get to see a lot in project management. So if you're going to accomplish any kind of task in the military, there's a sequence and there's a thought out way to do this, which is important in planning, even at the youngest level of youth sports, right? So even if you're coaching 5-year-olds, you would never want to go to practice without a plan, right? And if it's intentional and it's thought out, you can be super effective, and the 5-year-old recognizes it and they wind up having fun, right? And that's the whole idea. So if you're just the dad that has never had that kind of training, or you don't think about it like that, and you're just in like the civilian workforce, you leave your company and then you rush over to the field, and then it's like you're playing with kids, which is not really coaching, right? And then sometimes like
Very undisciplined.
It's very undisciplined, right? So
Yep.
that's the word. It's discipline.
Yep.
But think about discipline in as it relates to organization and planning, not discipline as like the drill sergeant yelling and screaming, because for some reason the civilian world thinks that's what military is. That is not what military is, right? And so the best military leaders now, like, just they don't coach that way. They don't lead that way. And that's why we just need more of these folks ingrained in our communities, teaching kids and teaching the community how to coach the right way.
Yeah, it's more of that structured methodology that I always found in working with, many folks in the armed forces. They're always just very, it's planned 3 times, then execute once, and it's very structured methodology in everything you do. And definitely with, we have young kids, so I do know that, if you just go play in the yard with them, like if you come up with a structure to it, they'll follow it. If you don't come up with a structure to it, then they go aimless. And it's not meaning to, to cut off creativity or cut off having fun. But the reality is, they want to be molded. They want to believe in something. They want to follow something. Like I was doing it the other day. I'm like, hey, let's, my kids are going crazy in the house. I'm like, let's do the shuttle run. They're like, what's the shuttle run? I'm like, oh, you put on a timer and you run back and forth and you pick up the block and you bring it back here. And we're going to keep doing it faster every time. And they're doing it and they're doing it and they're loving it. I'm like, all right, see, instead of them, beating them, each other up, now we have a good structured game and they're getting exercise in. They're getting stronger.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
5-year-old experiment.
Well, but I don't think that's an experiment. I think that is the methodology, right? And that was, the purpose of my book that accompanies our entire curriculum at Soldiers to Sidelines. It's called The Everyday Coach, Harnessing the Magic of Influence. So yeah, that book right there. So every coach, soldier coach that comes through Soldiers to Sidelines gets that for free, because that supplements everything that we discuss. And one of the main themes in the book is everybody is a coach every single day in every aspect of your life, whether you realize it or not. And if you can approach life like this, all of your relationships are going to be much better, and you are going to be more fulfilled, and life is going to be merry. But it requires a lot of work. And, a lot of times folks don't look at life like that, right? And there's a way to influence everything that's happening, so we can all reach a common desired outcome. And folks at the highest levels of the military and the most effective coaches, not to mean that the coaches that are at the highest level, the most effective coaches understand this. And I think we can develop all these skills. In fact, I know we can develop certain skills to become better coaches, have better lives, which is ultimately having better relationships.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. That's phenomenal. Just, that philosophy, and you're right. I mean, if you approach your everyday like that, certainly it'll be better than if you don't. I mean, certainly there's a lot of merit to that. When you approach your coaching program, what does your coaching program look like now? I guess just as what Soldiers to Sidelines offers. What does that framework look like as far as timing and a little bit on the curriculum? What does that look like?
It's a great question. So everything starts with an initial coaching certification seminar that we gear specifically to specific sports. We have a sports performance line of effort that is mostly sports agnostic. And in fact, right now we're in the middle of our military women's coaching certification, which is sports agnostic, but specific to female veterans, right? And service members, right? So we have active duty folks in here as well. So what does that seminar look like? It's free for anybody who has served in the military at some point in their life, right? If you are going to sacrifice your time for a greater purpose, which is our country, this is the least we can do for you.
Mhm.
And that seminar is about 20 hours of content split over 6 days. And then there's some like pre-recorded stuff that you do on your own time. And its central purpose is to get folks to understand that coaches coach people, and then we teach the sport. Coaches coach people, and then you teach business strategy, or you teach whatever the craft is. So how do we do that? And then what we start off with is this inverted pyramid of coaching success. And it's something that I've come up with that really is described in that book, The Everyday Coach. And if we can look at most things in life as an upside down pyramid where the base is at the top. And the reason the base is at the top is because it's the biggest part of the pyramid, which represents that's where we need to spend the most time learning and paying attention to get better. And that band is called inspiration. So the first level, which is the base of the pyramid at the top, is inspiration. So if you can inspire your people at work, on the field, in your kitchen, to do what you want them to do because they want to do it, you can be extremely successful. And then the second part, biggest part of this inverted pyramid, is motivation. So we talk about motivation as being self-motivated, but also how to motivate others. And it's really the consistent, perpetual inspiration that you initially achieved over time, right? Because, it's like we want to be successful. You go to a motivational weekend or speech,
Mhm.
and you're fired up, right? And then you start doing that stuff for like a week. And then sure enough, like 2 months later, we're getting back into our old ways and it starts to wean. So what are the skills? What are the strategies to be able to motivate ourselves and others for the long haul, right? To create winning teams. And then the third most important part is fitness. And in sports, that's easy. You think about like, your players. Yeah, if we're bigger, faster, stronger for longer, we're going to win more games, right? Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
But what about us as coaches? And like, then what does it really mean to be fit? And we talk about this mind, body, spirit connection from a physiological perspective, but also from a psychological perspective, and just this bigger spiritual way of approaching life. And if you can really get those three things really working together, and I don't mean just going to church, I mean like practicing like the sentiment behind the lessons that we're taught at church, right? Like whatever it is for you, if you can do those three things, you're going to get composure, serenity, and flow. So imagine as a leader, as a coach, every single day you went to every moment with complete composure, serenity, and you were operating in flow, you'd make a lot of good decisions.
Mhm.
A lot of people. Now that's aspirational, but it's something we got to be working on all the time, just like inspiration and motivation. And then the fourth part of this pyramid, as the pyramid starts to get smaller to the point, but also towards the bottom, then becomes technique. So there's a way to deliver all this stuff, right? There's a way to teach, or there's a technique to shooting, throwing, catching, passing, but there's also a technique in sales, and there's a technique in marketing, and there's a technique in communication. And learning the best ways to do that is going to help you execute all of the plans that you might have. So how do you do that? And we go into some detail. And then the tip of the pyramid is strategy. Well, now you have to actually have a plan, right? You got to go into the game with something, right? And same thing if you're growing a business, you have to have a business plan, right? Something to follow. But it's only the tip of the pyramid, right? Because if the strategy is clearly described and illustrated, and everybody on the team completely understands what they're supposed to do in that plan, you're going to win. But it doesn't work if the folks executing aren't inspired and motivated and capable to do it. And sure enough, like, think about everybody in coaching. Like, when people want to get into coaching sports, the first thing they start doing is drawing plays. Oh, we're going to run this offense, we're going to run this defense, and this is how we're going to beat that team. Sure enough, it works about 50% of the time, plus or minus 10%. And you get in the middle of the season and someone goes, man, we just have poor leadership on the team, or these kids just aren't inspired, or how do we get through to these kids? Yeah, and it's like, well, we should have thought about that first and then come up with any plan. Instead, we did it in the reverse. And think about life and business, right? You go to business school and you learn how to write all these business plans, and you get this sweet business plan. It's like got all these macros built into this Excel sheet, and you can change this number and 6 tabs over. It's going to show your outcome. That thing is awesome. That thing is garbage. Because if the people don't want to do it, it ain't working.
Yep.
So it's just something I think we have to change the way we approach success.
100%. Yeah, I really like the way you look at that. I actually had a question too. So do the coaches end up teaching during this seminar? So if they've been there for a certain amount of time, or if they show interest, or if they're excelling to a certain point, do they then go back and they start training the oncoming coaches during the seminars?
Sometimes. That's a great question. So what happens is when you go through that seminar, you get your initial Soldiers of Sidelines certificate of completion. So like, you're certified that you've accomplished this number of hours. Then our soldier coaches have opportunities to opt into our membership development program, where we have this whole suite of online courses that develop all of those high human skills. Yes, the course is online, but it comes with one-on-one coaching and interaction, like as if you're going to school. We have so many courses in the actual sport that you want to focus on as well. So at that moment, you can go as deep as you want into your development. And one of the goals of the seminar is to inspire and motivate everybody who went through the seminar to want to commit to a lifetime of coaching mastery. So we then try to push them into every possible learning environment, immerse them into coaching. We have folks, that come through our program that have been coaching for 25 years. They've been coaching that long already and wanting to get better. We also have folks that have never coached a sport a day in their life, and they're like, this is what I want to do. So it doesn't really matter where you are in that spectrum. It's about developing our leadership practice and our coaching practice forever moving forward. And some of our best coaches certainly teach. We have a number of them that are integrated into our seminars now that weren't before. And then we have these other live events that are coming up as COVID starts to relax and we get better in our communities, that we start teaching each other. And then we also have like these different community groups within Soldiers to Sidelines, where coaches start sharing information, they start sharing jobs. And then that's the other thing, like if you are in our membership development program, Soldiers Sidelines then becomes like your agent to help you get a coaching position in your community. And it doesn't matter the level. So if you want to coach college sports, we'll help you do that. If you want to just, coach at the youth level in your town, like we know a lot of folks. So if we don't know that person directly, we will know one person that does know that person directly. We'll get on the phone and say, hey, you need to, call Brad, interview Brad, because he would be a great JV basketball coach, or this person should lead one of your youth football teams in your community. And then that's how we connect everybody into the community and then let it grow.
Awesome. So you're like the trusted web resource for like, I'm sure people come to you and seek out coaches, and then you can kind of supply them with coaches too.
Yeah, absolutely. And so one of the challenges, which is actually a good challenge that we have right now, is, there's such a demand for good coaching and the supply is so short. And if you think about what it means to be a master in coaching, it requires effort and time. And what we invest, we go deep into the development of each individual. So would it be awesome for us to have 10,000 certified soldier coaches right now? That would be awesome. But if we tried to cast like a super wide net, we'd only go so deep. So we'd have it would be a shallow impact on each of the service members, which wouldn't have the best effect in the community because we haven't dove real deep into their development. But if we have 300 right now that we're going really deep into, now they can become super effective. So it's this balance of increasing in numbers, but really increasing in depth in the quality of each of our soldier coaches' practice.
Yeah. Very awesome. Really, really inspiring. Do you have stories about specific coaches who have then come back to you and been like, this just changed my entire life? Like altogether?
Yeah,
Every
absolutely. So, well, I'm not going to put words into their mouths. You have to read our own testimonials because it's not fair for me to tell their stories. But what has happened is, since we have been growing, we've been hiring our own soldier coaches. So I can tell this one story of a guy we just most recently hired. He attended our first football coaching seminar 3 years ago. And I think I was alluding to this before. Like, he just gave me this huge hug at the end and was like, "You changed my life." And he hadn't been coaching. In fact, he admitted at the time that he hadn't really left his house in 2 years. I mean, wasn't working. That was the first time he'd been out. And then so he tells me the depth of his story, and it's profound. And he was living in Florida, and then he was moving to Ohio. So I was like, "We got you." So he moved to Ohio. We developed him. We got him a coaching job. He's coaching at a high school football organization. He absolutely loves it. He's really intelligent. He has taught himself some really important skills, in graphic design and art and computer stuff. And anyway, over time, not only is he coaching, we have now brought him onto our team. And we have 3 other folks like that, that have just gone through the program, and then we've actually hired. And there's just countless stories. Like, if you were to hear this stuff, it's mind blowing. It's not fair for me to tell that story. We let them tell their stories as they wish.
Yeah, makes sense. But it seems like your impact, you probably can't even, there's no way to really measure the impact, because you've impacted them. They've impacted probably millions of kids at this point. And how many years has it been with all of that? So you feel like maybe how many years of it taking off? When did it really click for you that things hit a new level and the outreach and the impact was just beyond measure?
It was about 3 years ago. It was right before I resigned from coaching college and pro football. Like, it was, think about this. That's like a lifetime childhood dream and goal of mine forever to do this, and
Mhm.
I am doing it. And the impact from the interaction I had with our soldier coaches was so profound that I gave it all up to do this because this is that much better. And I did it without money. Like, so it's like, oh, never quit a job until you have another job. Well, I didn't do that. Like, I quit a job and had to invent something that may potentially produce money.
Yeah. But like
Yeah,
you said, it was,
you took a risk to realize your dreams. I mean, that, high risk, high reward is, very true in that scenario. But in the fundraising world, it may not be that easy.
It's it's challenging, but when people hear the story, I mean, to me, it's like it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
The good thing is, so much of the civilian world and the corporate world, they want to really help veterans and service members. There's a huge movement for that. I think what we're doing now is trying to educate folks on what that looks like. So how do we move beyond saying thank you for your service and actually doing something that people want to help service members? And there's a lot of organizations that do that kind of stuff, and we are one of them. And so I think if you're looking to support a veteran service organization, make sure you're looking at ones that actually are providing value to the service member in some way.
well,
Yeah,
you're
which very
providing a lot.
realistically, yours is a domino effect. So certainly there is, and it's a tangible skill that can be taken and used and then grown. So very clearly, it's not an intake, it's not a service, it's not a come here and we do this for a day and that's it. You're on your own. Like, and you've created a network after people leave. I think those are the mechanisms that help create a fulfilling and lasting impact.
For sure. And then, so there are companies that get it really, because now what's happening is, for instance, there's a wonderful organization called Higher Echelon that's sponsoring our military women's coaching certification seminar currently, right? And they have hired and they're looking to hire soldier coaches, people who've come through Soldiers to Sidelines. The company John Deere is doing the same thing, because what they start to realize is, yeah, they're soldier coaches. They are committed to developing their own leadership practice as a coach. And if we could have more coaching leaders in our for-profit organization, insert company here,
Yep.
they're going to be more productive for our organization. So now we're finding pathways for employment with companies that are sensitive to their desire to serve their community as a coach.
Mhm.
Because once you transition out of the military, it's not like you're done serving. You can still serve your country as a coach in your communities. And like, the smart companies out there are hiring those people because they also understand the benefit of, if I have great character-based employees serving the communities that we operate in, that's better for the company. That's better for the individual. And right.
Win-win.
So yeah, and there's a few really forward-thinking companies like Higher Echelon and John Deere right now that are putting money behind this, where they help the service member, but they're also helping themselves beyond just a good PR story, because they have entree into super qualified, passionate people.
Yeah, no doubt. How have you, I guess, in your fundraising efforts, just as an organization, have your, I guess, previous ties or your relationships with, the NFL or working in, different organizations, has that helped you in your fundraising efforts, or have you found synergy with, some of the professional sports leagues, if you will, whether it's the NFL or you said lacrosse, supporting now your cause? Have you found kind of a, kind of cross-functional relationship there, where you're supplying them, they're kind of funding you to help operate? I mean, obviously you need funding to help operate the program if the program is free to the participant.
Yeah, certainly. That has absolutely helped. And in particular, the New York Jets have been an incredible partner of ours. They were the first ones to really get it and move beyond saluting service members to really providing for them. And so we became their salute to service partner 3 years ago. And what they actually did was for their salute to service game, they brought us in for a live coaching seminar where we took over their team film room and held
Wow.
a 2.5-day event there while they were in season. And then our class of 30 soldier coaches were invited out onto the field on Sunday when they were playing the Giants. And then they got saluted, which is really cool. But they spent all this money and time developing them to become coaches and utilizing their facilities and their staff to really show, hey, you can do this. And then we can help get them jobs. And so what happened with COVID-19, we couldn't do these live events anymore, which was a blessing for us because then we went fully virtual. That allowed us to, really build and grow and reach more service members and veterans at one time. And then the Jets jumped right on board with that. And we're like, yes, we're going to sponsor that virtual event. And we did that this past year. And there's other NFL teams that are really interested in getting on board with that right now. COVID-19 has, derailed operations, I think, for everybody in this world right now. But we have a lot of momentum there. And at the least, it provides a bunch of bona fides, right? So like other sponsors are like, yeah, I want to associate with these high visibility sports organizations and also develop our service members and veterans as coaches. So yeah, it helps.
Certainly. I mean, it not only from a fundraising side, but also from a experience side, you've now provided your soldier coaches, in the program, another experience that they're going to not forget. I'm sure those 30 individuals are not going to forget that experience of, being at that facility.
No, they won't. And we have so many opportunities like that. We have a national ambassador program where our most zealous and qualified soldier coaches have volunteered to become ambassadors. And what they're doing is they're setting up a series of live events very similar to that in their communities. So what we're going to do once we're allowed to again is start hosting free sports clinics for communities throughout the country, coached by our soldier coaches in that area. One, it's a way for us to really give back to that community. And at the same time, it provides opportunities for our soldier coaches to get together, strengthen their bonds, and have a great time in doing what they love to do, and that's coach sports.
Yeah. And that's a chance. That's a chance to anybody who is observing this and they find out that the coaches are from your organization and they go, oh, well, my dad or somebody else that I know is a vet. Let me get the word out. It's a good word of mouth too. How do you guys go about getting the word out of your organization in addition to all the other stuff that you're doing?
I'm glad you asked that because we would love everybody who has an interest in coaching and sports to get involved. And, if you get involved, you don't actually have to attend a seminar right now. So you can go to our website, which is www.soldierstosidelines.org, right? And if you just join our mailing list, you'll now be privy to all the events that we have. So like this year, we have 9 coaching certification seminars, 2 for each line of sport. So our next one is specifically for basketball. Coming out of March Madness, April 26th to May 1st, we have our men's and women's basketball coaching certification seminar. And, the last basketball seminar we did, we had 8 coaches present at this seminar, 8 NCAA coaches from this year's March Madness.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so in this NCAA tournament this year, 8 of our coaches presented in the last seminar, and most of them are returning again. So on April 26th, you're going to hear the likes of like Josh Pastner, who is the head basketball coach at Georgia Tech, huge supporter. He just won the ACC championship. He's going to be talking to folks. Last year we had Steve Peichel at Rutgers. He spoke, and Nate Oates, the head coach at Alabama, who I believe is still playing and being successful in the tournament right now, he spoke. And we have so many of these awesome coaches coming again. So not only do you learn from like our curriculum, but the seminars become their own networking opportunity, and you get to just learn from the best of the best around. So that's April 26th to May 1st. Then we have a football one going up into Memorial Day. Then soon after, we have another lacrosse one at the end of June. And then we have a sports performance one in July. Then we'll do basketball again in August. And then we have football again leading up into Veterans Day. That'll be with the New York Jets again. And then we have sports performance. So even if it's not the sport that you love, coaches coach people. And that's what we're developing. So just join us. Just go to, just register for any of these events on our website. They're free if you're a service member.
Well, you're helping people align with their purpose. So you're helping people align with their purpose or realign with a purpose that maybe they felt like they lost a little bit. And then you've also provided a huge network for them. And then throughout the year, it seems like you have a ton of great stuff for them to get involved with to keep up what it is momentum, like the positive momentum, the influential momentum. Just it's really endless when you look at, like you said, it's a perspective shift, but it also takes a lot to really embed that in your mind to get that perspective to look at life that way. Like there's endless opportunities to influence and serve that higher purpose, and you're giving them the perfect community to do it. It's just like restructuring how they once looked at what their purpose was, and now it's maybe coaching, and maybe they never thought of that, just like you with your organization. It was so seamless for you because you already had all the tools. You already pre-qualified for the job, pretty much.
Yep, that's right. So it just made sense, and I'm so happy. And one of the things that I get super excited about what we do is, Soldiers to Sidelines is not transactional. Like it's like when you become part of the Soldiers to Sidelines tribe as a soldier coach, it's like you're in for life. And as life gets crazy and you have family and things happen, we're always here. So I mean, you could take our courses as long as you want. Like once you're in, and we will develop you with you for as long as you can. It's not like you just do this once and you're forgotten about. That's not the idea. Unless you want to be. Like, so then if you come and go as you want. What we tell everybody is just use us and we will help.
Yeah. Yeah, in Finding Nemo, when they jump into the current and then they just get carried away. That's what I envision. Like you jump in and there's really no way to avoid it. If it's something that you're passionate about, and like you, again, I just keep thinking about your own personal story. You're gravitated towards it. It will take you off as soon as you take the step in that direction. It's funny, Tony Robbins talks about like there's 2 millimeters between like where you are and where you want to be, or just like that shift. And if you take that one step in the direction that feels good or right, it will take you off into the right place. So I feel like that's what you guys are. That's exactly that. That's what I envision in my mind.
Yeah, it's true. And part of that though is you still got to swim, right? So as much as we're providing the current, like we're also providing the motivation, the encouragement, like you still got to swim. You still got to do that. You still got to move. And that's the best part about having a support system is, there's times where, it gets daunting and you don't feel like it, but you have your peers who share the same interest saying, come on, let's go, show up to that interview,
you're in the current together.
Your resume, do this. Yeah.
Awesome. Endless opportunities.
Yep. If that's the way you see it, it is.
Can be. So you talked a little bit about it, but where I guess as an organization and as just a leader of an organization, do you feel you need help? From the public, from those that can help. Where do you feel that the organization can be helped by our listeners and those out there?
Well, clearly this is free for our service members and veterans because we have to generate financial support from the public. So, small donations, even if it's just $5 or $10, goes such a long way in scholarshiping our veterans and service members to become great coaches. And, we have this legacy campaign where, if you become a recurring donor, you're now joining the current, walking alongside with everybody to develop their career. So even if it is just $5 or $10 a month, you become a part of the Soldiers of Sideline success and the fulfillment that each one of our service members has. So you could just donate at our website, soldiersofsidelines.org. And then when you do that, we have so many free live webinars from some great coaches. Like last year, we did 122 webinars that we put out through social media. So, donors get access to all of that, which is really cool. And then if you're a company that wants to get involved for real with a veteran service organization, we have tons of sponsorship opportunities with our seminars. We do live fundraising events. We have an incredible golf outing that we do in the Washington, D.C. area. And this year, we're also doing our first ever Legacy of Leadership fundraising dinner in Atlanta, Georgia in December. So if anybody wants to get involved, you can just reach out to me through the website or just go to the website and donate.
Good deal. And before we go, because I love when I get authors on phone calls so I can pick their brain and ask them questions about books that they wrote. I always pick out, I was always a big fan when reading people's books of just, call them isms or call them, phrases that they use or points that they make. I always love people's one-liners and kind of how they bring a point home. And so maybe if you just spend a minute, I'm gonna throw a few one-liners at you that you used and just your immediate reaction to it or your thoughts behind it. So
let's go.
First one, which I think is a great point and concept that not all of us think about. But the first one I saw in here was get your misses up.
Yeah.
Love that.
So, yeah. And that's the whole thing, is to redefine failure as missing. It's like when you're little kids, think back to when we were 5 years old and we were just playing with a ball in the yard, catch with your dad or your mom. It's like you weren't good. You picked up the ball, you threw it, it went in some wild direction. Not only did your parents not catch it, you were so stoked that you threw it, you ran over to wherever it was, picked it up again to throw it back at them, not even close to reaching your parents, and you just kept doing it because you're like, let me try it again, let me try it again, right? So there wasn't like, oh, I made a bad throw. It was, oh my gosh, I got to throw the ball.
Opportunity. Yep.
Opportunity. So essentially what the child is doing is missing and loving it as they grow. And imagine if we had that perspective in everything we did in our life, like how good we could be.
Without question, if you don't worry about the consequences of failure, to a degree, you don't worry about the consequence, you will naturally, I know with myself, I know I fail because I'm afraid of failing. And so I don't do something. And it's like, if you just did that, you would fail and it would be quicker and you wouldn't think about it for 13 years.
Exactly. So what we talk about in the book, it's not failure that people are scared of, it's the fear of failure, right? So as coaches, if we have players and people around us, there are ways in which we can mitigate the fear of failure in others to give them the courage to keep missing.
No doubt.
You just know that I'm not just like theoretically talking crap right now, because I quit my lifetime vocation to do this without money and not knowing how to run a nonprofit and just doing it anyway. And I was like, well, I'm just gonna miss, and we'll miss 1 million times in a row and it'll grow.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. Very
and
true.
If you're passionate enough about it, then just do it. Like, don't hesitate. Don't spend so much time in your head, because that's when things start slowing down. That's when nothing gets done.
Exactly. So I approach it like the kid. Like I do that. Like I just run with exuberance over to the ball, pick it up and throw it again. Woo! And then eventually I'm like, man, I can
Like,
probably
that felt good.
Target this thing and land the plane once.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, listen, you'll be more successful if you have more chances to be. The other one that I think resonated pretty well with me, just at the end of this one chapter here, was just the secret to successful, lasting results is not quitting. It's not failing. It's not quitting. Yeah. That was another big one. It's somewhat similar, but also had that same, leadership principle that just carries a long way in my head.
Certainly. I recently posted on LinkedIn something about this, right? And it's people quit when they only have 10% left on any project. Even writing a book, like my book coach, she's so phenomenal. And she just said something that blew my mind. Like, you get the manuscript done, she'd be like, Harrison, you'd be surprised how many people never publish their book after it's even gone through the editing process.
Oh, wow.
Right? Yeah. And it happens to a lot of people. And if we think about it in our own lives, it's, we quit right when we're just like 10% before the finish line. And the problem is, you don't know that you only have 10% left. It's like you're blinded, right? Think about what's happening to us in this COVID world right now. It's like, I can't wait for the end. I can't wait for the end, right? It's don't quit, keep moving forward until that whistle is blown or you break the tape of the finish line. At that moment, you have achieved. But until then, I know it's daunting. It's hard. It's dark. You don't know where the end is. All you have to do is take one more step. Just take one more step and don't think about it more than that. And then see it through. And, everybody wants to judge and tell you like why it's not good. But those folks are going to be really jealous of the fact that you made it, like you did it.
Yeah, no
As
question.
soon as you do it, they're excited. And then when their own peers kind of step into your world of opportunity, that's why they say the things that they do. It's their limitations, not reflective on the person doing and chasing their dreams.
So when you miss, just keep doing, just keep going. You'd be surprised. I love the Bill Gates quote. It's something like, I think it was Bill Gates. Excuse me if I bastardized this entire thing about to come out of my mouth. But it's people overestimate what they can accomplish in a year and drastically underestimate what they can accomplish in 10 years.
Yeah. And it's like they're totally opposing logic.
Yeah, because you're like, oh, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do this, and you have and then once the energy runs out, right, you get 90% of the way there, and then you quit. But if you just keep taking another step, okay, just do one thing or two things in year one, complete it, and then go to year two. And then as you amass that over 10 years, it's like, wow, you did all that? Yeah, just kept going.
Just keep going. Yeah. I'm reading a book right now, another one on habits. And the big thing is like, there's this kind of like economy of scale with habits, but it's like you have this point in time that's like the pit of despair, which is like, if you develop these habits, you're going to do one thing every day, small thing every day. And there's a point where it's just like, you feel like nothing's happening. And then all of a sudden, one day, it just takes off, because all of that stuff that you just did for the last, could be a year, could be 6 years, where you did the same thing every day for 6 years. And it's kind of very similar to your story of taking the organization, and it's, you do these small things and it's like, it's not going to work out. And then boom, all of a sudden it's like all the things that all these little things you were putting in place all come together at once, and it creates the bigger picture. But that also, I'm like, I gotta try that. Every time I want to change something, like, let me change something small, as opposed to trying to like move a mountain in a year, and not do it on January 1st. Let me try to do it like, not associated with some cliche holiday or cliche point in time.
It's a true story, Brad. And it's like, that. And all of us listening know that to be true. Like, we've even heard that on our own advice, but that's why we all need coaches. Because coaches remind you of this stuff. It's like we start to forget because our eyes point outward. So we're not very good at looking inward. So if you have a trusted confidant that can really speak the truth, that's another big part of this book, is mining for the truth. If you have someone that can say, hey, stay on task, do this, do that, and you trust them, they can remind you of these things where it's like, oh yeah, you're right. I was getting out of my wheelhouse. Let me just refocus and take that next step. And I think that's one of the reasons why Soldiers of Sidelines has been super successful is, because we've hired our own soldier coaches and people who've had successful military careers and folks that I trust deeply, like family. they are very quick to tell me, hey, that's not right. We should do this. And I'm very quick to accept that coaching as the leader because I don't know. And as long as I can keep reminding myself that you don't know what you're talking about, Harrison, listen to everybody else, I can have this filter and then grow. It's like once I feel like I got it figured out is when, we're going to come to a grinding halt.
Yeah. There's no figuring it out.
No, no,
Not all of it. All at
no,
once.
just pick up the ball and throw it again.
Just pick it up and throw it again. Yeah, 90% of life is showing up.
Yeah,
I realized that in the fire service. You show up. You're there. You're there. You're not there. You're not there. You're better
That's a
off
good
if you
point.
are there.
Yeah,
Yes.
you literally can't figure it all out. And the more you find out, the less you have figured out, to be honest. And that's really like the spiral of things. So the quicker you get that and let it inspire you versus freak you out. Like I'm 26. So I figured that out pretty quickly. Like the sooner I figured that out, the better off. I'm like, I cannot figure it all out, period. And that just means that I've been learning and I've been adopting so much more into my life, and that's what's bound to happen. And that means things are going in a good direction.
And here is something that can help us all not get freaked out by the totality of what we don't know. It's another thing we talk about in the book. You can't possibly know anything with 100% certainty in this world. Like there's just, even gravity starts to break down when you start thinking about what gravity is, right? It's something that we know to be true, except when you start getting into the quantum world and right. So anyway, we can't really know everything that there is to know. And if we get freaked out by like that, we're never going to have it figured out. The way to have courage is approach the unknown with curiosity and wonder. Think back again to when we were 5 years old and you could look at a blade of grass for like 30 minutes. You were like looking at the bugs crawling through it. It was like mind blowing. And it was so cool. And if we can look at everything in life with that kind of curiosity and wonder, it's not scary at all. It becomes entertainment, right? And so much of our life and happiness in our life is really for our own entertainment. Like we get to do this.
Yep, exactly. Really awesome. Coaches are, and like going back to coaches, I think, can you just talk real quick? You pretty much talked about it the whole time, but what is the importance of like a good coach in people's lives, just in general, throughout life, especially maybe in a veteran situation at that stage in life? Does the value of a coach ever go away? I already know the answer to this, but I want you to take it away.
Well,
Nothing's certain. Remember what you just said.
Right. You're right.
You can't already know the answer.
You're right. You're right.
but you can know this answer without being able to fully articulate it, right? I think sometimes it's like to say we have an answer means we have an explanation, means I have to come up with words to explain this. But sometimes there's a knowing that is not explainable, you just know. And the reality is you do know. So think about the worst boss or coach you've ever had in your life. Think about how awful that person was and how they made you feel, right? Try to remember what they smelled like, what was going on. And if you get really good at conjuring up those feelings, did that last with you? And then think about the best coach you've ever had in your life and how they inspired you to do whatever it is. And if you can recall that moment or those moments and how that makes you feel, does that last with you?
Absolutely. Yep.
So you get to choose which one you want to be every single day in every aspect of your life. Do you want to leave the scar like the bad coach did for you? Do you want to be the one that lives in that person's memory and their heart as the one that hurt them, hated them, put them down? Or do you want to be the one that is talked about as being inspirational and the reason you're doing good in the world? That's all of our choices.
Loved that explanation. And yep. And I love that you touched on every person being able to step into that, whether it's within their professional title or not, because that's the truth of it.
Yeah. And usually if it's your professional title, if a person is talking about their title, that's a red flag. You might not want that person as your coach.
Mhm.
Right? If people are talking about their resume, run away.
Exemplified through how they act versus how they talk.
Well, also, no one gives a shit. Like, this is the thing that people don't understand. Like, when was the last time you were excited to read someone's resume? Never.
Probably never.
Like, even still. I know this.
I will only caveat to say I like when I find someone who has the intelligent background, and then I have certain other activities like they're a first responder, they're in the military, they worked in a restaurant, like for our business. But yeah, I don't get excited over it, but I get excited when I find someone that has both skills. So
Well, so they can then tell you the story.
It's off the paper.
and they can tell you the story.
Right.
Yeah,
Like the
I want to know exactly.
And so, like, in sports, we have some phenomenal athletes that have done incredible things in their own sports career. And then those phenomenal athletes get into coaching sports at a high level. And the athletes on that team do not care what Hall of Fame you went to. I don't care if you're in the Hall of Fame. It's just, how are you treating me? Like, do you have
Exactly.
something relevant for me today in this moment? Yes, good. No, awesome.
Mhm.
Don't care about your gold jacket.
Green jacket, gold jacket.
If you have a jacket, it's awesome.
It doesn't matter what jacket you have on.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
No, it's
Yeah,
true.
all the rings, the trophies, like, sweet. What have you done for me lately?
It's all about what you're giving back.
We appreciate your time, Harrison, and just sharing your insight, your wisdom, kind of laying out there as far as how you got to where you are and your organization itself. Certainly, I hope our audience kind of checks you out, goes to your website, reads your book, which is called The Everyday Coach. You can buy it on Amazon if you want to look for a place to get it, by Harrison Bernstein. I would greatly recommend giving it a read. Whether you're a coach or not, I think there's a lot of very valid leadership lessons within it, as well as life lessons that can help you kind of think about things differently or approach a situation differently. So great book, great organization, and we really appreciate your time and efforts in what you're doing. So thanks so much for being here.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, Brad. Thank you.
Hey Warriors, thanks for tuning in. In the next episode of Witham Civic Warriors, we speak with Corinne LeBaron from Umbrella and Daryl McDaniels from the Felix organization on how they are helping children and young adults in foster care live great lives by realizing their fullest potential. Make sure to subscribe to Civic Warriors, and thanks for all your support. Have a great day.